Hello my dudes and welcome to my GSSR ranking for EDE's upcoming 7th anniversary. I normally never really do these kinds of videos, but you know, people do ask me about these every time, and I figured, you know what, this time I'm gonna do one. Obviously there's already a bunch of these out, be it videos or just guides online or whatever, you know, and you know, opinions will change, but I figure, you know what, people kind of like my tier lists, the annual ones anyway, so maybe they want to hear me talk about the GSSR options too. So you can kind of think of these as like a mini tier list. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through all of the banners, and I'm very briefly gonna mention like how good I think the servants in those banners are, both the 5 stars and the 4 stars, because we actually do have guaranteed 4 stars in these as well. And then maybe after that I'll give the banner like an overall rating out of 10 or something, and I'll try to be as brutally honest as I can, because you know that's what most people care about, I suppose. Now first and foremost, I do want to say people should definitely try for the servants they like the most. That's always my disclaimer. You know, I think that the game is most fun when you know, play the servants you actually like over gameplay. But the point of this video is the same as the tier list. I will be talking, you know, gameplay wise here. Nothing to do with how much I like or dislike the characters. Just to put that out there. Also, there's going to be the free 5-star CE pick as well, so do let me know in the comments below if you want me to talk about briefly about the free 5-star CE choices as well. But before I get to the rankings, I guess we might as well talk a few disclaimers first. Now, there are 20 of these options this time. That's a lot, because they're not only separated to classes, but also release date, I believe. So classes will have like multiple banners as is. That's why there's so many of them. And again, like I mentioned, besides the GSSR, the guaranteed 5-star servant, if you will also get a guaranteed 4-star. So no matter what, at least one 5-star servant and one 4-star servant. And the 4-star servants are also inside the class of the banner and inside the release date of the banner, same as the 5 stars, as you know, mentioned here. Same with 3-star servants, although there is one caveat here. In extra class banners, you won't be getting guaranteed MP5 Salieri this time around, I believe, if this is to be believed. So you will get like random 3-star servants from other classes, which I still believe includes possible story locked ones, because you can get story locked 3-star servants. You cannot get limited 3-star servants. So anyone looking to get more copies of Okada or Mori, sorry, not possible. At least not on this GSSR. So there you go. I think that's all the disclaimers. Yay. Now, let's talk banners. We got 20 to go through. I'm trying not to make this too long, so let's see here. We got the first Saber banner here. So talking about the 5-star servants first, there's 6 of them. We got Arthur first of all. Again, I'm going to try and be brutally honest here. Arthur, passable, never needed anywhere. He's cool, but outclassed. Still needs an MP buff. Okita, great single target DPS. Is she a must own though? Absolutely not. But will she always be a good old reliable? Yes, she will. Sigurd, similar to Okita, he's good, but he's not like top tier or anything. He's also replaceable, but you know, he gets a bit too much slack, but you know, he's okay. Narrow Bride, no longer needed as a support. Pretty much outclassed. Nice to have though, for sure, and even as a DPS she can do some good work too, so she's good, but not like a must-have or anything. We don't have the final or the latest buff to Musashi on NA yet, but even as is, she's still fine. Especially now that we have, you know, most of the good buster support options. She's alright, again, but not a must-have, just okay. Saber Shiki, kind of like Arthur, just kind of whatever. If anything, like her farming is just a meme. You can do it, but it's a meme. And her CQ potential is fine, but she's easily replaceable, so eh. Now, 4-star servants, we got some interesting stuff here. Standout, number 1, the first one, Salter. We don't have the latest buff on NA yet, but a lot of people know it will be happening, making her one of the easiest buster looping servants with Black Rail. Granted, you know, there's not like 1-1 enemy nodes. She can just blast through waves easily after that buff happens, so she is a real standout here. Also story locked, so she's a bit hard to get, you know, normally anyway. Another story lock, we have Gawain, but again, just kind of forgettable. He's fine, but it's just not really needed anywhere. Siegfried can actually be a decent buster looper, but, you know, depending on your account, you might have better options regardless. Theon, as much as I love him, not needed really anywhere, just forgettable. Suzuka is okay. mostly as a DPS, definitely not a farmer, but not needed either. Umu, we got the crazy buff like last week on JP, but obviously that's like 2 years away from Bede. So before that happens, she's alright, but nothing crazy. But after that buff, she becomes a really good soloer DPS and can even do some farming despite having a one-hit MP. Crazy. Saberfront, just kind of forgettable. Yagyu, decent, but again, not really top tier. Robot needs more buffs. Saber Lancelot, always a decent option, but again, still eh. And we'll be having some really good Saber welfares later on too. Next year we're getting Setanta, and the year after that we get Iori, who is like the king of single-target 4-star Sabers in a lot of cases. Having said that, overall I would rate this first banner a... because I'm gonna use the full 1 to 10 scale here, and I'm gonna be as brutally honest as I can. This banner is it's like a 4 or a 5 out of 10. Just middle of the road, nothing crazy. And especially if you're looking to snipe a 4-star, it's even harder because there's 10 of them in this banner. So I can't even rate it high just because of, you know, future Umu and Salter shenanigans, because it's not like gonna be consistent anyway. So I'll give this banner like a 4 out of 10, as brutal as that sounds. Then we got Saber 2, starting with Saber Stolf. He's very interchangeable with Okita. Both are decent, but nothing game-breaking. Ibuki is still a standout for sure among Sabers. Great DPS. Can do some farming, but unless you have a crazy copy, her farming is like whatever. But even as a DPS, she still is fine on lower MP levels because she has some crit potential too. Summer Okita is really strong. Still one of the absolute top AoE quick performers, especially in looping. Her refund is just that good. So she's always going to be great. Charlie, after his buff this year on JP as well, has become a lot better, especially as a DPS, now that he gets his stacks easier, and farming-wise, he's okay, but, you know, kind of interchangeable with Okita, Summer Okita there. Muramasa, there's a lot of, you know, mixed opinions about him. I still think he's solid. Is he top tier anymore? Maybe not, but is he still solid for, you know, both kind of farming and DPSing? Yeah, he's alright. Strong Sisters, great for CQ stuffs, but a lot of the times their, you know, defensive utilities are kind of overkill since, you know, Castoria exists, and I'm going to be brutally honest here, of course. So, you know, it's mixed value if you have Castoria, but if you don't, their utility can actually be really, really valuable to you. Then they're still decent overall. Benny-Emma offers some interesting utility in the form of the AoE buff removal, you know, protection. But besides that, as a DPS, her value is mixed because unless the enemy is chaotic and or evil, she, like, if they're not that, none of those, then her damage is really tanked, sadly. But she still has some support capabilities, but definitely not a must-have. 4-star Saito, really, really strong. Just one of the best single-target looping servants in the game for bosses. Just easiest MP spam ever. Just solid. Summer Maeve, just forgettable. OG Saber Diarmuid, also pretty forgettable, sadly. Summer Toba, forgettable. Barghest, pretty decent. Obviously, a lot of people, you know, she's a big fan favorite, so a lot of people know about her. Her solo potential is decent. It's nothing crazy. It's maybe a bit overrated at times. Like, you kind of need a really crazy copy to do good solos with her anyway. And her farming is kind of non-existent, but she's just solid all around. Yeah, nothing wrong with her. Lakshmi Bai is a bit underrated, but not a must-own. Same with Lanling. Just decent options for sub-utility if you're lacking on supports. Roland is actually underrated. He's a decent DPS for sure. And Watanabe, just forgettable. Okay. So we have even more servants here. I would rate this banner it's definitely at least a 5 out of 10. Maybe even a 6. We'll see. But I'll give it a 5 out of 10 for now. It's just okay. Alright, first Archer banner. We only have 4 SSRs here, starting with Archuria. Again, I like Saito, one of the best MP spammers in the game for the single target department. In fact, she might still be the best. So, yeah. If you have a Black Rail, you'll be happy to get her. Ishtar is still fine, you know, just kind of boring, doesn't really do too much, just all about, you know, decent numbers, but, you know, Kid could have more stuff in it. Same with Gilgamesh, we don't even have the latest buff on it yet, but you know what, at least he still hits really big numbers against most servants in the game, and that's all people care about, so it still keeps him very relevant, of course. Moriarty, as much as I love him, not needed, but, you know, still a bit underrated, maybe? Maybe not, nah, maybe not. Yeah, just kind of forgettable, sadly. Gameplay-wise, not character-wise. Love that guy. 4 stars, Fujino, starting off. Great servants, just real solid. Not top tier, but, you know, does the job. She even got a new buff not too long ago on JP. Although, again, it's pretty far from a day. Nyanta, heavily just, you know, left behind by time. No one uses her anymore, especially because quick looping is just kind of niche anyway, so Sadly, that's all she has, so forgettable. Emiya also, I think he's just kind of, even on NA, he's starting to kind of, show the cracks. He's falling off. A lot of people swear by him, and yes, he can do a lot of work both in the farming and DPSing department, but especially farming-wise, he's tied to CE. It's just doesn't really work that well anymore because of, his MP being like half refund, half, not refund. It's wonky. Summer Ann and Mary, maybe little underrated, but forgettable for the most part. Emiya Alter, kind of forgettable. He only has a hard-hitting MP, but man, it's hard to loop because his gains are dog. Summer Helena, forgettable. Kairon, really, really good, especially post-MP buff. He can both now do supporting and some great DPSing with good utility in his kit. Good servant. OG Toboe is just okay, but that's all she is. Tristan, OG that is, solid, underrated if anything. One of the better ones in this pool for sure. There's not that many SSRs, so it's easier to get someone you want, I suppose. But overall, I would rate this banner a 6 out of 10. This might be the best one so far. Just because, of the SSRs, 3 out of 4 are at least good to very solid. So, there's that. Archer banner number 2, we have even less SSRs now, only 3. So, starting off with Summer John. She's fine, but if you really want to do, great farming with her, you do need kind of a big copy. Her looping, itself is good, but her damage is always not the best. Sei is awkward. I believe she got a buff not too long ago as well, but even after the buff, she's kind of wonky, I want to say. She's decent all around, but just not needed, I guess, is the word I'm looking for here. Super Ryan, obviously a standout, still very solid. Some people say he's overrated. I disagree. He's always delivering on bosses. His solo is not that great though, by the way. If some people think that he dies way too easily, even if he has a lot of damage. But as a DPS, he's still very solid. 4 stars, starting with Hot Wheels. He's good, maybe even underrated a little bit. Just brings the good deeps, has some decent utility, solid all around. Summer Anna as well, very solid. Easy to loop MP, although with lower MP levels, her MP could do more damage, but still just a solid single target archer. Summer Ilya, maybe a little underrated as well. Her MP kind of sucks for damage, but her crits are decent. Summer Hime, bad. Calamity Jane, decent, has some utility options too, and as a DPS she is fine too. Zenobia, great looping and decent DPSing, although again at lower MP levels your farming numbers might be a bit too low. And then Fairy Tristan, much like OG, just solid, kind of interchangeable for the most part. They do offer some differences, of course, depending on the scenario. One will be better than the other, but she does not have the upgraded MP, but still a solid servant regardless. This one I would rate a 5 out of 10, or maybe even a 6. Obviously, it's easier to get the SSR you want here. If I had to guess, because I haven't even looked at these beforehand, I'm just winging this. This probably has the least amount of SSRs of all these banners. So again, if you want one of the SSRs, this is probably your best bet. But even then, considering their, power, you might end up being disappointed on who you end up pulling. You got Lancer 1 with 4 SSRs, starting with the Resh. Always solid, also a fat favorite, so a lot of people would be pulling just for the character. But yeah, she farms decent, and especially her CQ, presence is very notable. A lot of utility, good damage mod, all that jazz. She's just solid. Shisho right now on NA is pretty, just alright, but nothing remarkable. But after we get that buff from a week ago on JP, which again sadly will take about 2 years or so, her value will definitely skyrocket. Her DPS becomes way more consistent and just can pull out some crazy numbers. But that's a long ways away, so take it how you will. Tama Lancer, kinda whatever. I'll be honest. As someone who even has a Grailed one on JP, she's whatever. She's even outclassed by Summer Guchan a lot of the times as a welfare, so kind of makes her look bad. OG Brid, not needed really anywhere. I'll be frank, she's okay, but I never use mine. Just the way it is. 4 stars, Lancer Alter is just okay, but kind of outclassed by the time as well. Looks worse every year, I would say. Extra Vlad is fine, but again, not needed. OG Liz is fine, but not needed. Summer Kyo just kind of sucks. Neza, again, nothing remarkable. Parvati is decent among, AoE quick servants, especially among 4 stars, but kind of just, being lost to time as well. Fion is okay, but chances are you have better options. Summer Raiko can make for an interesting esports servant at least, so even at MP1 you could do that. Yes, again, I'm that brutally honest that I might even recommend leveling servants for esports. Sad, I know, but there you go. As a DPS, she's also okay. Medusa Lily is okay. Maybe a little underrated, but just you can probably do better. Lancer Lee is good burst damage, but high cooldown, so his downtime kind of sucks. And then OG Valk is just kind of sad nowadays, I'll be honest. Just especially with the state of Quick, even on JP, just forgettable. So 4 stars are pretty bad on this one, I'll be the first to admit. There's not like any 4-star that is actually really good on this banner, sadly. So you're gonna end up getting someone like that might not be that big of a deal. And 5-star wise, there's good stuff, but some will get better value later, sadly. So overall, it's brutal, but I'm gonna rate this it's either a 4 or a 3 out of 10. I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Brutal, I know. Also, just because I'm rating stuff low doesn't mean that I'm not necessarily going to use all the ratings. There might not be a single 10 out of 10 banner here. Just to put that out there. I should have mentioned that at the beginning, but I'll rate every banner as is. Not in like any kind of order, So there might not be any like really high ratings in here. Then we got Lancer 2. I guess this only has 3 SSRs as well. So starting with Sakamoto Lancer. He's fine, but again, not really needed. But decent for sure. Melusa, obviously a standout. She is still very relevant. Although, worth noting that you kind of still want multiple copies for her to truly shine the most. But still a very loaded servant. That's for sure. And you will probably be happy if you pull her, even if you don't have any existing copies, of course. Roma is strong. His farming kind of sucks, but his DPSing can actually be good. It's a bit wonky at times, and we don't even have the Roman command code yet on the day, but still very decent. We only got 6 4-stars here, so starting with Summer Ibaraki rather. Starting with Summer Ibaraki, she's forgettable, sadly. OG Cadis will get better. I don't think NA has the skill buff yet. I could be wrong, but once that happens, she becomes pretty decent, but her MP still kind of sucks for damage, so you're mostly relying on face cards. So overall, not the best. Liangyu is a bit wonky, but sadly, I don't think you really need her for anything. Don Quixote, as much as I love this servant, gonna be my next grail on my main account as well. Kind of bad pre-buff. Summer Melt, good looping, but damage can be a bit low depending on how many copies you have. Percival, same thing, very easy looping, but at least he has some added utility on top, I guess. He's just a very good 4-star in general, and getting more copies never hurts. A bit of an upgrade when it comes to 4-stars here, but nothing crazy. And the 5-stars, there's 2 standouts, I want to say. So I'll rate this this is either a 6 or a 7. I'll go with 6 out of 10 on this banner. It's not bad, actually. And we got Rider 1 with another 3 SSRs, starting with Maid Altar. Just very forgettable. Bland servant, not needed anywhere. Pretty hot, though. Ivan, very solid. His farming can be good, but especially on bosses, his utility is very nice to have. This guy is really good. Iskandar needs more buffs. What could I say? They can still salvage him. He's 1 or 2 great buffs away from actually being really good. But sadly, as is, he kind of sucks. 4-stars, we got OG Stolf. Lost to time. No one really uses him anymore, sadly. But, if you have good taste, you like him. We already covered the summer version earlier, but Ryder, Anne, and Mary, King, just kind of forgettable. Not needed. Same with Marie Antoinette, OG, just bleh. Martha can have some interesting uses, even as esports. So she's a nice servant to have, but nothing crazy. And Surfmo, while she loops really easily, her damage might just be a bit dog, depending on your copy. So 1 copy might not be enough for her to suddenly, be like your bait arts looper for riders. But, still kind of a rare servant at least. Man, SSR is kind of lacking on this banner minus EVOD, so I'm gonna rate this banner a 3 out of 10. Rider number 2, we got Bucket, probably the latest SSR before the anniversary hits Friday, unless I'm forgetting a release before that. No way, because it's the next thing. Okay, Bucket is fine, not great though, like not needed, but she's okay. Constantine, pre-buff. I guess a lot of people say he's one of the worst SSRs in the game, so yeah, sure, we'll go with that. Rhinus, absolutely amazing. Just top tier, hands down. NA has all the buffs now. She's so amazing. She's not used that much in farming. You can do it though, but mostly in CQ, she is invaluable, especially if you have a Castoria or don't. In either case, she's amazing. And then Ryder Da Vinci, very comparable to Bucket, so it's interesting that I guess that they happen to be on the same banner because of release dates. She loops a bit more consistently, but damage is still not amazing, depending on your copy, but still pretty good on bosses too. Helps your team spam MPs more. Just okay. 4 stars, Summer Camilla. Good utility, but not needed. Just kind of forgettable. Summer Canis, decent single target DPS, but definitely not needed. Dobrinian was buffed a week ago on JP as well, but even as is, it's just not needed. Then we got Summer Murasaki. I believe, is this... did we already get the MP buff last anniversary, or is it on this anniversary? Well, either way, whenever this drops, her MP buff will be out, and she is a really solid single target rider DPS, so she's a great get if you get her. This banner is not bad, although if you hit Constantine, you will probably go cry in a corner, so there is a really big risk factor here, although he will get buffed obviously in 2 years or so, which makes him usable, but before that you will probably never use him, I'll be flat out. So I'll rate this banner a 5 out of 10, but let's say you land like first copies of Rhinus and Murasaki Summer, you would probably be creaming all over your keyboard. At that point it's like a 9 or a 10. So risk factor, there is really high potential here, but it is a very risky banner, so 5 out of 10 overall. Then we get some spicy stuff. Caster 1. Starting with Ilya. There's still not that many single target casters out there, so Ilya is okay. She can do some work for you. So depending on your lamp, she can be good. Scotty, obviously, very good. Even to this day. Especially on CQ, she's highly underrated. Post MP buff, she can actually do a lot of work. You'd be surprised. Try her out. You probably won't be disappointed. Also, Summer Scotty is soon on NA, so a lot of people might think, oh, but Caster becomes bad after that. No, Caster gets better after Summer Scotty is released. Common misconception. You definitely want to have both, especially if you like quick. So don't get fooled. So, Caster is still very relevant, okay? Because you might do triple Scotty on farming as well, depending on your servant. Scotty, amazing. Summer Umu, decent, but AoE casters, they're kind of wonky, I'm not gonna lie. I think the only one that really kind of stands out, unless I'm forgetting something, over the past years is kind of Tonelico, but yeah, Summer Ubu is still okay. Decent farming, decent DPS, but nothing great. Merlin, obviously, still top tier all these years later. You'll be happy if you don't have Merlin. You'll probably be creaming, maybe, depending on how many supports and good ones you have on your account, so he's amazing as well. Da Vinci OG, kind of underrated. Sadly, she can't farm, obviously, but she has some okay presence in CQs. She's fine, but if you're gonna roll this banner, you're probably rolling it for the 2 supports. Now, I should mention that MP level-wise, you don't really want to dupe Scotty. That really doesn't do much. A dupe Merlin is not the worst, but you probably don't want that either. So, yeah, take that how you will. 4 stars, OG hell it up. Kind of, you know, outclassed by time, but still okay. Caster Gilgamesh, we don't have the big buff for him on NA yet. That gives him the spread battery stuffs. So before that happens, he's kind of forgettable, but after that, he's definitely relevant again, especially depending on your lineup. Cersei, kind of bad, even if there's not that many single target caster DPSs. Queen of Sheba, Otto will hate me for this, but she's kind of whatever, especially at MP1, she will not do like any damage. Edison is actually very underrated. His damage is not great, but man, he has a lot of utility and supporting. He would be a great pickup if you get him. Nursery Rhyme, forgettable. Nidocris, decent, still relevant because, you know, it's free max battery, so you can do some, you know, interesting farm shenanigans, especially if you can insta-kill enemies. Very relevant, so if you don't have her, she's a good get. Summer Marie, very bad. And then Media Lily as the final one. Healing is still, as a meta, is kind of dead. But if that ever, you know, gets some kind of interesting, really big tool, she will be relevant again, because that's basically all she does. Granted, she is one good, decent option for some buff removal resistance too, if you're lacking on that, so she can be a decent get, depending on your account. This is a tough banner to rank, but, you know, assuming you don't have Merlin or Scotty, this banner would be it's either a 7 or an 8. But because the results can be a bit whatever, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. It's probably the best banner so far, though. Casters 2. Spicy. First of all, Castoria, still the best servant in the game. I say that every single time. I never really recommend rolling for servants or even say any servant is a must-have, but if I would say there's one must-have servant, it is Castoria. She's the end-all be-all. When you get her, you win the game. That is as simple as that. Izumo, probably the best single target caster in the game still to this date, even on JP, so she's good, very nice. Especially after Summer Scotty is released, gets even better. Miss Crane, underrated, but not needed. She's like one of those win more servants, but can make for some fun setups too, so you probably won't be too sad if you get a first copy of her. And Murasaki, well, at MP1 her damage won't be super high. She still offers great utility. She's one of the better options for, you know, team-wide buff removal resist too. 4 stars, we got Saber Charlotte. Decent, can enable her own damage niche, of course. But her downtime is not the prettiest, but she's good for sure. Daikokten, underrated. Farming damage might not be super high, but they're one of the easiest AoE quick servants to loop. Just MP spam after MP spam and some decent team utility. Good servant. Miyu post MP buff, also good. Problem is her skills are still bad, but her MP, if you can keep the train rolling, so you probably want to bring a second support with her, can actually really add to your combat prowess, of course. So also good. Man, this is actually a really good banner. This is a 9 at least, for sure, especially if you don't have Castoria. I'm hesitant to say a 10 on this banner, but honestly, frick it, this banner is a 10. Every servant is at least good or very good or the best. Wow, honestly, yeah, this is a 10. No matter who you get, you'll probably be happy because they're all, again, at least really good. Amazing option. Assassin 1, starting with Cleo. As much as I like Cleo, and I think she's underrated as a waifu, as a servant, she's okay, but definitely not needed. Same with Shuten, exact same comment here. She can't loop, but she has some okay presence in CQs, but not needed. MHX is fine. People kind of underrate her, because even after all the buffs, she still doesn't have like the greatest kit out there, but her numbers still carry her. Her refund and Stargen are both really good. She's okay, but not needed. Grams is still one of the better single target assassins in the game to this day. King Hassan, that is, but even having said that, he's not really a must-have. But he's probably the best of this banner. Not probably, he is. 4 stars, we got the sad Kiritsugu at first. Love this guy, but man, he's still not the best. Although his MP is actually good. It's just that it's kind of hard to get it at times. Yanqing, a bit underrated. Can do some decent crits. He's not just a star generation machine now, but not needed. Carmilla, okay, but not needed. Steno, Otto will hate me for this, but definitely not needed. She's mostly still a meme, even if she might have some spots here and there. You will never need to use Steno. Wu Zetian, highly underrated, very, very good. Her DPS is good and her supporting is good. Super good 4 star. You will want a copy of Wu Zetian, for sure. Even decent esports potential. Now, having said that, this banner is a 3 out of 10. Brutal, I know. Grams definitely, I would say the best case scenario would be King Hassan and Wu Zetian from this. And at that point, it would be like a 7 out of 10. Not even like the highest thing ever, but yeah. 3 out of 10 overall. Assassin 2, well, this looks interesting, starting with Kama, OG. Still, again, much like Grams, one of the best single target assassins in the game. One of the few that actually, with Grams, that actually stand out, because Assassin as a class, sadly, might just be one of the worst in the whole game, because of the way the numbers work, so it is what it is, blame the developers. But yeah, Kama, still relevant, still good, especially when Summer Scotty is coming out, she even gets more relevant, so she's gonna be a good pick. Semi-Romi's just kind of bad. She is, again, an option for sub-buff removal resistance for your team, but there's better ones out there for sure. So if you don't need that, then she will probably just gather dust in the corner. But she's kind of hot, so good waifu. And then Koyan, obviously. If you don't have a Koyan, amazing. You basically just made your account that much better. You can buster loop now, chances are. You can do some funny CQ min turns. She herself is not a bad DPS either. Just amazing get all around. MP level wise though, you probably won't be that happy. 4 stars, Samarushi. One of my favorite Saber servants, but the gameplay wise kind of forgettable. Samarokita, obviously a big favorite of mine, but you know, the demerit is still annoying, but besides that she has good numbers, but overall, not needed. Danzo, pretty bad. Good Chad, underrated, but still, whatever. Summer Nidocris, just the insta-kill problem in her MP still makes her, like, not have any sort of presence in the game, sadly. So, irrelevant. Mochizuki is fine. A decent single-target assassin option, depending on if you're lacking on some or not, but if you have any, you don't really need her either. So 4 stars, not really good on this banner. But 5 stars can actually be really good, and there's a good chance you get one of the good outcomes. So based on that, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 just because the SSR, the chances for a really good SSR option here are actually very good. But if you add semi-rummies, you're probably gonna be pretty sad about it. So that's really kind of holding the banner back. Berserker 1, the fun class. Starting with Kentucky, he still is, even though his kit kind of sucks, he's still relevant because of his easy to, you know, blast, high damage MP. You know, there's still raids, and even in some farming, he can actually be used. So he's actually still relevant, despite his bad kit. So he's not a bad kit. MHX, well, she's fine. She's not needed anywhere. Hijikata, one of my favorite servants in the whole game, but is he really needed? He can be also hard to use, so not really needed anywhere. But he is a very fun DPS, but again, most people here don't care about FUDs, so I would say for most people, he's not really that great of a get. But he can actually be really, really good if you actually know how to use him. And then Berserker Raiko, well, NA doesn't have all the buff shit, I believe. And even then, her Buster looping will only be there for, like, the big fans. Otherwise, decent DPS, just all around okay, but not needed. 4 stars, we got Dianta Alter, kind of forgettable. Ibaraki OG, decent, but mostly forgettable. Sabernobu, if the enemy is divine, she's a solid, you know, option. But besides that, not needed. Tamamokat, no. Fran, no. Beowulf, decent, but if you have some good single target options, you might not need them at all. Herc, still one of the best anchors in the game. Granted, you get the Bodsy, very relevant, very good. Penth, decent, but maybe not needed. I'll be frank. Lancelot in 2024, yeah, no thanks. Kind of a tough banner, not gonna lie. I don't think there's really that many really good gets here, so I'll rate this banner a 3 out of 10. There's not that many amazing things on it gameplay-wise. Berserker 2, a lot smaller pools. Starting with Arjuna Alter. I mean, he's still the man with the good class that makes his own damage niche, so yeah, surprisingly, he's still very relevant and good, so there you go. And even an MP upgrade of him would actually be a pretty solid get. Summer Musashi, she will become a really good anti-archer DPS when NA gets that buff, but farming-wise, she's kind of starting to get outclassed even on NA, so not the greatest get, but again, as an anti-archer servant, she will actually be very solid later on, so can be good future-proofing. Morgan, this is the hot topic, of course. I'll just say it frankly, at MP1, her farming damage is absolutely god-awful. You would definitely need to hit her damage niches to compete in the higher, you know, farming levels. But as a CQ presence haver, you know, DPS, and even has that immortal comp option, she is very solid. I'll give you that. So she would still be a very solid get, even if you don't have her. And obviously, much like Arjuna Alter, MP levels can help, but I think MP levels on Arjuna Alter would be better because it's more universal that way. 4 stars, we got Dino Mommy, not needed, forgettable. Creamhild, absolutely cream of the crop, pun intended. One of the best 4 stars in the game. You'll be very happy if you land a copy. And again, MP levels on her would also be very solid. Amazing. Somerset, a bit underrated for sure. Decent crit option among Berserkers, which is kind of rare to begin with, but just an okay get, not bad. Summerbryn is fine. Just, you know, a AoE Berserker that's kind of easy to keep alive, so if you're into that, then she's okay, but otherwise not really needed. Way better than Berserker 1, I'll tell you that much. 5 stars overall, none of them are bad actually, so that's very good. Especially, again, once Musashi gets that buff, she's at least a very good anti-archer, or anti-saber. I think I kept saying anti-archer, my bad. Anti-saber, you know, servant. She like steals the role from all the archers. And there's actually some decent 4-star options. One really amazing one too. So I will rate this this is a 9 out of 10. I was thinking maybe an 8 out of 10, but this is a 9 out of 10. Accounting for Musashi's anti-saber shenanigans in the future. This is a really good banner. Extra 1. We got Subruler and Avenger action. So starting with Abakusa, as much as I like him, he's not needed. But good utility for sure. Sherlock, speaking of utility, even better on that front. Especially now that NA has the battery buff too. He's a very nice servant to have. He might not always be needed or very often at all, but he is just a very, very nice servant to have. Dante's kinda outclassed by time, even though they tried to buff him to keep him more relevant, but he's still like just And for both farming and DPSing, honestly. Jalter, oh yeah, I mean, she's good. People are gonna be rolling just to get her because they love the character, but gameplay-wise, She did get a buff this year as well on JP, which, you know, made her more relevant. But after that, she's good, but not like top tier. She hasn't been top tier in so many years, in my opinion. But, you know, a lot of people will just pull for the characters, so why not? 4-star Summer Martha, okay, but not needed. Gorgon, not amazing, so kind of eh. Lobo is decent, but, you know, permanent. You probably already have some copies. Not needed. Passion Lip, not needed. So not really amazing 4 stars, and the 5 stars have mixed values, so I'll rate this banner a 4 out of 10. Eh. Extra 2, Bunny Toria. Ooh, I still think she needs way more. Way more. She is very wonky, and she has awkward numbers. First Emperor, good, but not top tier anymore in my opinion. Decent, you know, solos, and okay presence in team fights. He's good. Space Star, this is the hot topic, you know, people will already hit that dislike button because of the placement this year. But yeah, she's good, you can use her. But man, Summer Ibuki is coming out, so you can think about that, you know. She will, if you get Summer Ibuki, even at lower MP level, she will probably still outclass Space Star in basically all farming. So it's just, again, I told you I'm going to be as brutally honest as I can. Space Star is still okay though, but she is looking a bit worse every single year. Until maybe they buff her eventually at some point. Maonobu, decent for sure. Can make for some interesting min turns as well because of her scaling attack buff, but it's a bit hard to set up, but actually not bad. Summer BB, decent as a crit DPS, and then she has that interesting, you know, min turn mechanic with her 3rd skill locking those cards. Her farming is a meme unless you have high, you know, a very fat copy of her. But yeah, decent crits and interesting min turn utility. 4 stars, Luvia, God tier, much like Creamhill, still one of the best 4 stars in the game, just flat out. Even if the enemy isn't evil, she can still be very good because of her upgraded MP. XX, kind of forgettable, but can be a decent option, you know, among foreigner single target deeps, because there's not that much of it. And Hephaestion, actually very good too. Not top tier, but just a solid servant, especially if you don't have a, if your account is new, getting her would be huge because she covers all the knight classes and can even do anti-caster because of her skill. And obviously, you know, she's also anti-alter ego, which is very rare. Very, very rare. So 4 stars, if anything, are way better here than the 5 stars. That's the funny part. Overall, I'll rate this banner a 6 out of 10. Kind of carried by the 4 stars. Extra 3, we get 6 SSRs now. Karen, really good. One of the better AoE quick servants in the whole game. Good for bosses, decent for farming as well. Just a great servant all around. Ruler Moriarty, recent addition to EDA. Not needed anywhere, sadly. Just kind of forgettable. Not bad though, he's a bit trashed on, but he's not that bad, but not needed anywhere. Himiko, as much as it pains me to say this, she's not really needed anywhere, but she can really still be good. Like both as a she can do DPS, she can support pretty well for buster crits, and she can be used in an immortal comp. Granted, again, she's not needed necessarily. There's many, you know, servants you can kind of swap out for other ones depending on your lineup, but because of that, she is actually kind of a great get, depending on how your account is looking. Summer Kama, much like Space Star, she's good, she's fine, but, you know, if you plan on rolling for Summer Ibuki, then rip Bozo, I guess. Tyra, very solid, good solos. Team White is a bit wonky for her, you know, when you're using her in teams, but still not bad, very decent as a single target Avenger option, probably one of the better ones still. Summer Kiara, actually pretty good, very easy to loop, and can actually bring some big DPS numbers even on lower MP levels because of ease of use Black Rail and her MP having that super effective from her own debuff stacks. Pretty good. And I guess we have the same 4 stars here. That's interesting. So that's actually good because those 4 stars overall are very solid. So I'll rate this banner a... This is actually a 7. You'll probably mostly only be sad if you get like Moriarty, but everything else is at least really good. Or just maybe even close to top tier in some cases. But yeah, and the 4 stars are great. So hey, I think it's a pretty easy 7 out of 10. Good banner. This video is way longer than I thought, by the way. But yeah, we're still going. Extra 4. OG Okizalter. Love her so much, but not needed anywhere. OG Kiara. She's good for bosses. Her damage numbers on farming are kind of bad. And it's not the easiest. She's way harder to loop than... Summer as well, but she's still fine, she's good, Funnily enough, the CQ on Hakken than on NA actually was a really amazing CQ for her. So take that how you will, I guess. OG Melt, still relevant, not top tier, but a solid single target, DPS. And again, especially if you're lacking on like single target assassins and casters specifically, Rider is usually pretty easy to cover. But yeah, assassin and caster can be tricky. She actually gets a lot of bonus points because she can fill those roles as well, being an alter ego. OG Abby, not needed anywhere. Kind of sad for the most part. Can have some uses, but just kind of bad. OG Hoxa as well, I can't believe I'm saying this, but kind of bad to her damage. If you're not hitting man attributes, it's just so bad. It's so atrociously bad. Even if you stack defense down on her a lot, it's bad. I'm sorry, she needs more buffs. And we get the same 4 stars as from Extra 1, I believe, which sadly are not as good as the other 2, or the previous 2. So again, they're just, none of them are needed, really. They're just whatever. So having said that, this banner is not really all that amazing. You'd probably roll gameplay-wise for Kiara or Melt most likely, and then there's not much else to talk about. So this is gonna sound brutal, but this is a 2 out of 10 banner. It's pretty bad. Yeah, this banner is pretty bad for gameplay value. It's probably the worst one so far. Extra 5. We got King Protea first of all. I may have underrated her a little bit on my tier list this year, but she's still not a must-have or anything like that. Summer Abby, I give her a bit of points, of course, for her utility. I think she's going to be a better get than OG Abby, though, for sure, but not a must-have either. Van Gogh, amazing. Even at MP1, you will be very, very happy. Her skill set is really good. Her MP is still bonkers. You still get crazy crits, even at MP1, if you pair her with Forters, because, that number doesn't scale anyway. So, yeah, she is just top tier still all this time later. She would probably be the reason you roll this banner, for sure. Yeah, easily. Voyager, cool utility. Can actually do more damage nowadays. He used to do 0, but after all the buffs, he can actually do some deeps, but not a must-have certain by any means. And Yang Guifei kind of looks a little worse every year. Her neutral numbers are not that good, even if you hit burn. So she's mostly really good against Berserkers, but can be a very good option for that if you need more, safer options. And again, this has the good 4 stars again. So it's interesting. They seem to put the... I think it's 4 out of 6 extra banners have the better 4 stars. I don't know why they're not 3 and 3. Maybe it's because of the classes. But yeah, again, really good 4 stars here too. It's an interesting banner. Again, you would probably only roll this for Van Gogh, basically. Unless you like the other characters, non-gameplay wise. So this banner is good overall. I want to say this banner is actually a 7 as well. Yeah, this banner is good. And finally, we got extra 6. We got 6 SSR, starting with Doman. Amazing servant. So versatile. Supporting your other servants' damage. He can be a DPS himself. He can farm. He's the best insta-kill farmer in the whole game. It's just super solid all around. Even at MP1, you'll be happy to have a Dolman for sure. Just amazing. Super Bunyan. Love this girl to death, but gameplay-wise, she is so forgettable and kind of trash, sadly. Bazette, though, however, very solid. If you like quick DPSing, she is one of the best single-target quick DPSs in the game. Very good. Jacques, just kind of sad. Even after the buff that NA doesn't even have yet, just didn't really change much. So, can be okay in bosses, but farming is just absolute dog. Ooh, Koyan of Dark. Can be okay, but farming-wise, absolutely terrible unless you have a plushie copy, just not happening. Oberon, of course. I did say Castor is the one must-have in my opinion account. I still kind of stand by that, but Oberon would obviously be a huge kit for any account that doesn't have him yet. MP levels, unless you have a Grailed copy, they don't really mean anything at all. So it would only be for the first copy. But if you do land a first copy of Oberon, you will probably, again, cream all over your keyboard. He will have that big of an impact. He's not just obviously for Buster servants. He can be used in any card type. That's the fun part. So, amazing servant. And again, the good 4 stars on this banner too. So, it's very 50-50 on the SSRs, I'm not gonna lie. 3 of them are top tier or account changing in one case as well, and the 3 others are either gonna be absolutely unused or just maybe used occasionally depending on your lineup and who servants you like. So that this is the riskiest GSSR of them all, I think. This has the highest risk factor, but it can have really good payout. So I'm still gonna give this banner an 8 out of 10, believe it or not. Just because there's some real amazing servants up for grabs here. But do keep in mind, it is a very risky one. So might not be everyone's cup of tea. Okay? That's me being as honest as I can. Okay? So wow, there you go. This video ended up being like, my recording is like over 50 minutes long. I'm gonna try and trim this down, but it's probably gonna be over 30 minutes anyway. I even tried to like, I tried to not talk about too much of the servants. Like, if you want better breakdowns of all the servants, just go watch my tier list, okay? There has been some changes with buffs after that, but for the most part, they're still very up to date. So again, you can just search my tier list, or I think there's even a playlist on the, if you open my channel and go to that tab, you will find them easily. So just go through those if you want to hear my opinion, my plushie and Otto's opinions, that is, of, you know, the servants I just covered. So this was just a very, not even brief, because again, this video was long, but blabbering through all the banners quickly, giving them a rating, and you know, hopefully giving you some ideas. Again, this is all gameplay wise. I would still recommend rolling first and foremost to get the servants you like the most, okay? But yeah, if you want to roll for gameplay, there you go. There's my opinion. And again, do let me know in the comments if you want me to cover the CEs briefly as well. That should be at least a short one, so maybe I'll just knock it off anyway. If you enjoyed it though, do me a solid and press the thumbs up button. The anniversary is coming up very soon. I might make some other fun stuff for it as well. Something that you guys might benefit from as well. Ooh, teasers. So definitely stay tuned and do subscribe not to miss out on those videos. Stay notified, ring that freaking bell, okay? More free-to-play coming out as well, by the way, for those asking about it. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Good luck on the GSSRs way in advance, and I hope to see you in the next video.